Now it's time for RTB 101. This is the segment where we talk about practical questions to help equip you to share your faith with your friends and family more effectively. And I'm here again with my colleague and fellow theologian, Kenneth Samples. Ken, we're going to talk about Bible translations.
Yes.
There are so many. And more coming out all the time,
That's right.
It seems. In the old days when we used to have Christian bookstores, which seems to have gone the way of the dinosaurs to some regard.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, you got just a whole wall of different translations. But I know that this can be a source of confusion among unbelievers, and especially my Muslim and LDS friends. Why are there so many translations? Why can't Christians get their act together and have just one?
It's an important question. I think the way of thinking about this issue is to realize that if you look at all of these Bibles, if you look at all of these translations, they're very, very, very similar. And there are times where there's a particular thought in mind in some of these translations, like a paraphrase, maybe the Living Bible. You want something that is very, very readable. It may not be the best translation in the world in a scholarly way, but it's intended to get people, whet their appetite, get them involved. Other times, Krista, translators are thinking, I'm going to translate this word for word, whereas other times they'll say, no, let's try to capture the thought. So I think it's important to recognize that if we go back to the 3rd and 4th century, compare those manuscripts with what we have today, there's no major changes.
Okay.
So it's the same Bible, but there are different emphases with the Living Bible, the NIV, the NASB, etc.
So when I'm trying to make sense of the Bible translation alphabet soup that's out there, so some principles it sounds like I need to know, first of all, is that the manuscripts that stand under the translations, the original languages of
3rd, 4th century,
Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, those things are pretty well established.
Very well.
What we're talking about is the English expression of those of those manuscripts, right? And then I think what I hear you say is we might think of them as different buckets, like 3 different buckets. We have some Bible translations that are word for word. They try to be as
very literal.
Very literal, okay. Then we have another bucket of kind of, how do I express the main thoughts or ideas?
NIV, a good example of that.
Okay. And then we have paraphrase Bibles that are more of like, how do I put it in more contemporary language?
That's right. That's exactly right. Now, if you look at them, they're all faithful. If you look at them, they all correspond to the ancient manuscripts. So unlike the claim made by the Muslims and the Mormons, there is no translation that is corrupted or anything like that.
Yeah, because I think that is a point of confusion among many people is, well, don't all these Bible translations prove that the Bible's been corrupted? But really, I think what I hear you saying is we've got to look a little deeper at the manuscripts, and that's the stable part.
Yes, and again, we can go back many centuries, and unlike other so-called holy books, there's no major corruption.
Okay, so when we think about Bible translations, tell me what your favorite is. Which one do you like to use?
Well, I know a little Greek and a little Hebrew. I like a Bible that will use the biblical languages. I like study Bibles because I like information at my fingertips. I like the 1984 NIV. I like the ESV, the English Standard Version. There are a lot of good ones. You know, the King James Bible is a very good translation.
Yeah.
So we actually have the opposite problem to people in the ancient world. We have an abundance of good Bible translations.
I know one of my favorites. I too like the NIV. I've kind of been transitioning to 2011, but my standard teaching Bible is the 1984 version.
Yes.
I've also discovered recently the New Living Translation. My husband and I use that in our devotions together.
Interesting.
Very refreshing. Really like that, especially for new believers. It's a little simpler. But Kenneth Samples, everyone, I want to invite you to check out his blog called Reflections. It's at reflectionsbyken.wordpress.com. So many thoughtful pieces there. Thank you for all that you do to sow into us and help us grow.